Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cardano Podcast. I'm Ryan Morrison, your host, and today we'll be talking about the Merry hard fork. I had a conversation with Elliot Hill. He works at the Cardano Foundation as he's the communications and engagement manager. There, he wrote a very good piece explaining what the hard fork, what the Merry hard fork means. So we discuss that in detail and what are the next steps as well for Cardano in the next months and quarters. Now, before we start with the interview, if you'd like to support the Cardano podcast, remember that you can check out our proposal on Fund 4. It's called Cardano Podcast Interviews with Teams, with the teams behind the different proposals, and you can just feel free to give us some kudos or some feedback as well as there in comments, and later on, of course, vote for our proposal so we can continue with this series of interviews on the Cardano podcast. All right, now let's go and let's listen to the conversation I had with Elliot about the Cardano ecosystem and specifically about the Merry hard fork. Hi, everyone. And as promised, I'm here with Elliot from the Cardano Foundation. And hi, Elliot, and welcome to the Cardano podcast.
Hi, Ryan. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And thanks for taking the time to discuss the Cardano with us. And we, as I mentioned previously on the introduction, we'll be talking today about the Merry hard fork. I'm sure you all guys I've heard about it, and then maybe you have a lot of questions. So Elliot wrote a very good article about it, and we'll dive deeper on that. But before we start, if you can give us a bit of an introduction of yourself, Elliot, and then we just jump more into Cardano itself.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name's Elliot. You all know that. I'm a communications and engagement manager at the Cardano Foundation. So I joined the foundation last July, around the time actually of the Shelley hard fork, which was a period of intense change. And I don't think we've stopped since. So the engineers at IOHK have been really busy, and we've all had a lot on our plates, and it's been a great few months since I joined the foundation. So I'm based in the UK in Wales. And I'm one of two foundation staff at the moment that's based in the UK. So yeah, it's the Merry hard fork it's like one of the biggest things I would say to happen to the blockchain in the last few months. So I'm really excited to talk about it and be here today.
Interesting. Yeah, and then what I think also is very interesting is that you have this the background of having been before. I was reading an article in the forum, Cardano ambassador also. So you have that knowledge previously of the role that you have now.
Yeah, so I was nominated as an ambassador by like a virtual friend, a colleague, in the blockchain space. Who was kind enough to nominate me. His name was George. But unfortunately, because of like other commitments, I worked elsewhere in the blockchain space with a few other companies doing content management and communications. I didn't have that much time to dedicate to the ambassador program. But I've been involved and, in the community of Cardano since it launched in 2017. So I really, really wanted to give back and work within the Cardano community. So when a role opened, it was perfect. I'm really, really glad to say that I can contribute to the Cardano ecosystem formally.
Cool. Now that we were talking about the Cardano ecosystem and also the latest developments in the Cardano ecosystem, one of the most important or the latest ones has been the Merry hard fork. I'm sure you our viewers and listeners have already read or heard something about it, but many that haven't really read much about it and they don't really know what this is. So maybe we can cover that. So to start, what is the Mary hard fork, and why is it so important for the Cardano blockchain?
Well, yeah, it's been hard to miss. So I hope that everyone's had a chance to familiarize themselves a little bit with what Mary means for Cardano. So it was named, maybe a bit of background first about the naming conventions and why, like the engineers at IOHK maybe decided to call it Mary. So it was named after Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, who was the author of Frankenstein. So she could be considered perhaps one of the first sci-fi original authors, which was quite impressive for her time. And she was the wife of another figure in the Cardano ecosystem. And obviously that's what the Shelley hard fork was named after in the Shelley era. So the Mary hard fork was facilitated by IOHK's hard fork combinator. So quite often when we talk about hard forks in blockchain, they're often seen as disruptive events. But what was most notable, I think, about the Mary hard fork was this smooth and orderly transition from Shelley into Mary. And it was one of the first times that we actually started seeing Gauguin era components live on chain. So it's been a real step forward for the Cardano blockchain.
Cool. Yeah, then so one of the interesting features that this brings is now the ability to create native tokens in the Cardano ecosystem. And before we get into that, I think it's interesting also to point out what you just mentioned, that even though it's called a hard fork, is maybe a lot of people that are listening to this have heard in the past also other hard forks in other blockchains, and that those are like pretty big, and it sounds like a break of the community as well. In this case, of course, as you mentioned, it's different. Of course, it's a kind of an upgrade, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So as I said, it's facilitated by the hard fork combinator, which sort of oversees the orderly transition from one live blockchain to the next. So although big changes did go on behind the scenes, and I can tell you with certainty that our exchange and integrations team at the foundation were incredibly busy, as were everyone at IOHK. Hopefully the average user and those who hold ADA, they shouldn't have noticed many differences other than maybe a few updates to Daedalus and Yoroi. So there's been no major split in the community. It's just an orderly transition into a new and exciting time for Cardano. So I think it took place. It was 9:44, I think, on the 1st of March that it took place. And I don't know whether anyone noticed. Hopefully it should have sailed by and all gone through smoothly. And yeah, so now we can start proliferating native tokens on the Cardano mainnet.
Yeah, that's something really cool. I think that we should also discuss. So then maybe we can start with what are native tokens, and why do we say there are native tokens in the Cardano network?
Yeah, sure. So this is a really interesting feature of Cardano, and perhaps we could preface this with talking about what it looks like on some other chains. So with Ethereum tokens, for example, to write the actual token logic, you need a smart contract. So ERC20 tokens, they require smart contracts to program token functions. So you have things like vesting and policies around how they can be used and their distribution. Whereas on Cardano, we call them native tokens because they actually use the underlying logic of the Cardano blockchain. So there's not a great amount of user specified smart code required to write a token. Instead, we use something called a minting policy. So the minting policy is a few user-defined features of the token, so like burn rate, distribution, whether any of the tokens are vested or not. So the main thing to take away and why we call them native is that they use the underlying Cardano blockchain as their token logic. And this makes them a lot more robust and secure because there's very little, custom code to exploit. So we've seen on some other chains, and it's not just limited to one chain, it's happened across a few blockchains, that some very clever people find smart contract exploits in tokens, and a lot of on-chain value has been lost through these exploits. And hopefully on Cardano, because we limit that custom code that's deployed in the first place, we limit the amount of human error that can go alongside a token. And that's why they're called native, and it's also why they're called custom tokens, and they're user defined. So they're minted on the Cardano blockchain using the underlying token logic, the same as ADA.
Great. So if you mint a token now, you can use the underlying technology, and you don't need smart contracts. So then you can either also save or like minimize risks, and I guess also save in money that you would have to spend in auditing the smart contract if you don't want it to get hacked. And it could still happen in that case. So it's great that in the Cardano case, you don't need those smart contracts.
Sorry, I would just say that I wouldn't say that smart contracts aren't important. So smart contracts are still going to be a huge part of the Cardano ecosystem, especially through the Marlowe DSL. So we've got the domain-specific language for financial smart contracts. But again, they're going to be a lot easier to write and deploy because we have a visual programming language environment for those as well. And also we'll have the Plutus Playground and the Plutus smart contracts. Obviously, they're written and implemented in Haskell, so they're a lot more secure as well. So everything we do is focused on minimizing risk and formal verification. But for native tokens, yeah, sure, we don't need a smart contract to launch a token on top of Cardano.
Got it. And so that does that mean that anybody could create their own token?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, at the moment, the token minting process is done through the Cardano CLI, so the command line interface. So at the moment, you do need a little bit of technical knowledge to launch a token. And you'll also have to have access to our docs, which obviously is public, and you can download the Cardano node. And if you have the expertise, by all means, mint a token. There's already been, I think, 1,500 tokens minted on our testnet and over 600 tokens on the mainnet live already. There's some really interesting names. People have come up with all sorts of coins. There's Nutcoin. One of our staff members, one of our team members, has Melcoin, so he's in our exchange and integrations team. He's minted his own token mainly for testing purposes, but it's really interesting to see what's been built already, and to say that it was 12 days ago that this became a feature, that we already have over 600 tokens on the mainnet. It's, you know, almost faster than stake pools proliferated following Shelley. So yeah, go ahead, and if you have the expertise, then please, by all means, experiment and make your own token.
Great. Yeah, for all the listeners and viewers of the Cardano podcast, if you want to learn more about it or learn how to create your own tokens, I'll leave in the description of the video the links to the documentation and everything you need to know to do it. And now, then maybe we can discuss what are the next steps for Cardano now that has happened. It's great to see that it's growing so rapidly. People that are minting tokens even faster, as you said, than the stake pool operators. I think we have something around 2,000 stake pool operators, a bit more maybe at the moment.
Almost, I think, yeah. So I think we've got, last time I checked, it was over 1,600. I'm sure it's probably more than that now. But yeah, hopefully it'll get to the point where we have so many tokens and so many smart so many state pool operators that it will be hard to keep track of. There's other blockchains where we've got so many projects building on it that I think no one could really say with certainty all the projects that are springing up every day. And I'm certain that in time that will happen to the Cardano ecosystem as well.
Yeah, that's what I think it makes it so interesting, because that the ability to create your own tokens and play around with it, whether it's in the testnet or even in the mainnet, plus what's happening on Project Catalyst, that you have all these new projects being also funded by the community itself. It's really great to see how everything is falling into space, and then to see how everything is growing, also building, not just and building and creating tokens and building applications also, and even more than applications also. That there are many proposals on Catalyst about local community Cardano centers as well. So it's not also only for technical users of the community, space for everyone to throw an idea and also work on that. Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, we could probably record a whole other session about Catalyst, and maybe I'm not the person to talk to about that. So obviously it's been led by Dor in IOHK, and he's just done, and loads of people at IOHK and the foundation done loads of fantastic work on Catalyst. And it's really great to see how many ideas are coming through on there. So I know I've registered to vote with my ADA, and I've been involved in voting on some proposals there, and just the depth of the community proposals, they're really, really impressive. And you touched a little on the local community centers. So that's a Cardano Foundation challenge, and what we want to achieve with that is local centers of excellence, really, where people can learn about Cardano, where they can exchange ideas and really start building. So we want to take it out of hubs of interest, which are great, for meetups and that sort of thing. But we want to have centers where people can actually build, collaborate, and maybe they can meet like-minded individuals and start building applications on Cardano, because we're ready and we just need people to start building now and working with each other. And we've got such a powerful community that we need to start thinking about how we mobilize this community to build on Cardano.
Yeah, that would be great to start seeing it in the coming quarters and months. Also, these local community centers. That maybe now that we are reaching the end of our conversation, maybe we can discuss a bit of what's next for Cardano. We don't need to get into the details, but more what's coming. Well, we know that smart contracts will be the next thing also in their roadmap, and maybe we can discuss a little bit about that and go.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Gogun is a process, and just like the Shelley rollout was gradual, we've got Gogun components coming online, and rolling out on the mainnet every month. So even before the Merry hard fork, we had the release of token lock-in features and capabilities. Now we've got native tokens. Next is going to be, as you say, smart contracts mainly through Plutus and the Plutus playground. But we've also got the KVM, which is an Ethereum virtual machine formalized in the K framework. And we've also got the Marlow DSL and the Marlow playground. For me, I think Marlow is a really exciting feature because it's built for smart contracts, but specifically for ones that are financially based. And one of the most exciting features about Marlowe is that it will be usable by subject matter experts rather than pure developers. So, for instance, someone who's an expert in the field in finance could go into the Marlowe playground and use Blockly, which is a visual programming, a little programming language, a little like MIT's Scratch software, so where you can build simple games, and you can drag and drop sections of code to build out a smart contract. So basically, this empowers users who aren't developers and they aren't technically minded to still launch a descriptive smart contract on the Cardano blockchain. And the utility and the usability that we think like this will empower, it has real potential to break into industries who have maybe not got involved in blockchain because it's a little too technical. Well, now they'll be able to deploy a smart contract on a blockchain without having to learn loads of code in between. So for me, I think Marlowe is a really exciting feature. Some other things that we're working on. So obviously we've got this large ecosystem of tokens now. We need to look at ways that we can manage them and formal frameworks to basically legitimize some projects. So if they want to become like a part of a legitimate consortium of projects building on Cardano, we can do that and facilitate that. And now part of the Cardano Foundation's work is learning how to empower and push power to the edges of this huge community and how we can work towards truly decentralized governance. So I think there's a lot going on, and it's not just Gogo and components that are rolling out now. So Project Catalyst is it's really part of the Voltaire era. So we've got all these components being developed in parallel, and they'll continue that way and will continue evolving. So who knows when Gogo will end and one era will begin. Instead, they're all being developed in synergy, and I think that's even more exciting, I would say.
Yeah, definitely exciting times to come. Now that you one thing about Marlowe, I'll leave also then the link in the description. So for all the listeners that want to go and play around with the Marlowe playground, and you can just build start with a simple smart contract. Maybe you can build an escrow smart contract, and you can already start with that. Well, that it's really interesting to see that all the things that are happening, and as you said, Elliot, it's not that, and that's just something that maybe sometimes is a misconception that when something is finished and then the next thing starts, a lot of things that are happening in parallel.
Yeah.
So it's not just that the next thing is going at the same time. There are a lot of things, like you mentioned, are happening. With that, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to discuss the Merry Hard Fork and what's coming in the next months and quarters with the Cardano podcast. So thanks very much, Elliot, for your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
And thanks everyone as well to all the listeners and viewers of the Cardano podcast. Will be later next week as well with new interviews, probably with some teams that are the teams behind some of the proposals on Catalyst. And with that said, I'd like to thanks everyone. Thank you, Elliot, and thank to the listeners. And I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Bye.